by Professor KAYODE, GBEKELOLUWA, BAMGBOSE. The title of the lecture is In the Footprints of the Environment, Every Contact Leaves a Trace on Our Common Future. Professor BAMGBOSE is of the Department of Analytical Chemistry in the College of Environmental Resources Management, Colem. Ladies and gentlemen, the procession is filing in. Can we all be upstanding in deference for the procession? Thank you very much. Can we all be upstanding, please, in respect of the procession that is filing in? Once again, you are all welcome to the 84th inaugural lecture of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. The lecture is to be delivered by Professor KAYODE, GBEKELOLUWA, BAMGBOSE, and the title of the lecture is In the Footprints of the Environment, Every Contact Leaves a Trace on Our Common Future. Ladies and gentlemen, can we put our hands together for the inaugural lecturer? Thank you very much. At this moment, the national anthem, please.
Shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
FUNAB anthem, please.
School of family time.
Thank you very much. May we all be seated, please. Thank you very much. Once again, you are all welcome to the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, and to the 84th inaugural lecture of this great citadel of learning. The lecture of today is to be delivered by no other person than Professor KAYODE GBEKELOLUWA BAMGBOSE from the College of Environmental Resources Management. Dear distinguished guests, it is my honor
the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Development, the Acting Registrar, the Acting Bursar, the University Librarian, the Inaugural Lecturer, Professor KAYODE GBEKELOLUWA BAMGBOSE, the Dean, College of Environmental Resources Management, the Head, Department of Environmental Management and Toxicology, other deans and directors here present, members of the BAMGBOSE family and relations, invited guests, members of the university community, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, greatest Funabites, greatest Funabites. Thank you very much. It is with great honor and privilege for me that I welcome you all to the 84th edition in the series of inaugural lectures in the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our inaugural lecturer of today, whom I now have the honor to invite to please stand beside me. Our inaugural lecturer of today, Professor KAYODE GBEKELOLUWA BAMGBOSE, KGB for short, was born on 19th February 1957 into the family of Mr. Ayorinde BAMGBOSE, now Emeritus Professor Ayo BAMGBOSE. You are welcome, sir. And late Ayinke Oladunni BAMGBOSE of blessed memory in Ibadan, Oyo State. Professor KAYODE GBEKELOLUWA BAMGBOSE had his early education at Luba Primary School, after which he proceeded to Government College Ibadan from 1970 to 1974 for his secondary school education. At that period, higher schools in Ibadan from 1983 to 1988. After obtaining his PhD, he joined the services of the Lagos State University in April 1988 till September 1988. From 1988 to 1991, he was a lecturer at the Ogun State University, now Olabisi Onabanjo University, Agoiwoye. In 1991, he transferred his services to University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, now the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. In between these services, he worked as a part-time lecturer at the Lagos State University from 1990 to 2000, and also as a part-time lecturer at the Ogun State University from 1992 to 2004. He also, at various times, served as part-time lecturer at Covenant University. He had been on sabbatical leave at the Olabisi Onabanjo University in 2003, University of Lagos in 2010, and Federal University of Technology, Akure, in 2017. Professor KAYODE GBEKELOLUWA BAMGBOSE joined the services of FUNAB as a lecturer 1 in November 1991 and rose through the ranks to become a professor of analytical/environmental chemistry in 2008. He has served and is still serving the university in various positions and capacities, such as Industrial Attachment Coordinator for the Department of EMT 1993 to 1999, Coordinator of the Department EMT 1992 to 1995. He has been a member of the University Senate since 1992. He was a congregational representative in the University Senate. And of course, Professor KAYODE BAMGBOSE was a chairman ASU UNAB from 1997 to 2001. A service that made his name to become a compound name. In other words, when you are asking for Professor BAMGBOSE, they will ask you, which one is it, BAMGBOSE ASU? He was a member, Management Committee on Transportation. He was a zonal coordinator, ASU Ibadan Zone, from 2004 to 2009. He was a convener, ASU Human Rights Committee, convener, ASU Committee on Universities of Agriculture. Between June and September 2005, he was the acting head, Environmental Management and Toxicology Department. And then in 2007, Professor BAMGBOSE was appointed as the director, Center for Entrepreneurial Studies, CENTS, and he held that position until 2011. Professor BAMGBOSE was also the chairman, University Change of Name Committee, and a coordinator and one of the conveners of Ogun 2010 International Conference of the Chemical Society of Nigeria. He belongs also to a number of professional bodies, among which are Chemical Society of Nigeria, Ecological Society of Nigeria, Nigeria Environmental Society, Nigeria Association of Aquatic Science, and is also a member of some social organizations such as Chess Club Abeokuta. I have here that Professor BAMGBOSE was also a GO, Three Triangular Gospel Church of Christ International. The university registrar will confirm whether that is in his file in the office. He's also a member of the GCIO Boys Association, 1970 to 1974 set. Professor KAYODE BAMGBOSE BAMGBOSE has graduated 12 doctorate students, comprising major supervisor to 8 and co-supervisor to 4. He has supervised over 20 master's degree students and over 200 undergraduate students. He has over 70 articles in various local and international journals. He's married to Professor Titilayo BAMGBOSE and blessed with 4 children, Bukola, Golahon, Taye, and Kehinde. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite Professor KAYODE BAMGBOSE BAMGBOSE from the Department of Environmental Management and Toxicology, College of Environmental Resources Management, to present his inaugural lecture titled, "In the Footprints of the Environment, Every Contact Leaves a Trace on Our Common Future." Thank you for your attention, and God bless you all.
I apologize for the delay in transmission. Mr. Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellors, other principal officers of the university, Dean Column, HOD EMT department, HODs of other departments, members of Senate, fellow lecturers, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, great Funabites, great Funabites. The lecture today is the second in the EMT department, the 12th coming from the College of Environmental Resources Management, and the 84th in the university. Some might wonder, what is an inaugural lecture? On our family platform, somebody asked this question, and my father replied as follows. He said that a newly appointed professor was required to give a detailed description of direction in which he intended to pilot his discipline in teaching and particularly in terms of research. At the University of Ibadan, the first set of inaugural lecturers followed this pattern. At that time, there was only one professor. There was only one professor in each department. When the university moved into the era of multiple professorships, it became impossible for each new professor to give an inaugural lecture as soon as he was appointed. Consequently, an inaugural lecture became a retrospective account of the new professor's research. This kind of lecture could be given 10 or more years after his appointment. Mine is coming 16 years after. I started as a graduate assistant at UI before getting my PhD in 1988, then as lecturer 2 at LASU. Later I moved to OU, and then I came to FUNAB in 1991. In all, I've been teaching for the past 42 years. I consider myself as a teacher of teachers, and I'm a professor of analytical environmental chemistry. The title of this inaugural lecture is In the Footprints of the Environment, Every Contact Leaves a Trace on Our Common Future. I'm going to take us through the title and explain what the title means. The natural environment is a set of living things and non-living things, where we have plants, animals, microorganisms, atmospheric layers, abiotic factors, minerals, and rocks. There are extremely complex interactions between the living organism and abiotic elements, as well as meteorological influences, all of which combine to form a rich speciation of biodiversity in most natural systems. The human environment consists of 4 major spheres: the atmosphere, the lithosphere, the biosphere, and the hydrosphere. The lithosphere, this is the earth crust and is the outermost solid surface of the planet. The hydrosphere, this contains all the water bodies, the oceans, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Southern, and Arctic Ocean. The atmosphere, this is a key factor in sustaining the planetary ecosystem. Dry air consists of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% argon. The biosphere. Evidence suggests that life on Earth has existed for about 37 billion years. History of life, through time, University of California Museum of Paleontology. The biological manifestation of life is characterized by organization, metabolism, growth, adaptation, response to stimuli, and reproduction. Definition of life, 2007. We then have these biological cycles, which are essential for the sustenance of life on Earth, with each contributing to this: the nitrogen cycle, the water cycle, the carbon cycle, the oxygen cycle, and the natural phosphate cycle. In the footprints of environmental issues, some of the goals expressed by environmental scientists include reduction and cleanup of pollution, with future goals of zero pollution, reducing societal consumption of non-renewable fuels, preservation of threatened and endangered species to prevent extinction. We now come to the second leg of the title: Every Contact Leaves a Trace. Dr. Edmund Locard, who is the pioneer of forensic science and who brought about the Locard exchange principle, said that wherever he steps, whatever he touches, wherever he lives, even unconsciously, will serve as a silent witness against him. All of this and more bear mute witness against individuals who commit crimes. The scientific method of gathering and examining information about the past, which is then used in a law court. A classic example is attributed to Archimedes and the famous battle cry, Eruka. According to Vitruvius, a votive crown for a temple had been made for King Hero II, who had supplied pure gold to be used and wanted to find out if indeed the pure gold was used and substituted with silver. He found out that indeed it has been substituted. He used the law of displacement to prove that the goldsmith had taken some of the gold. Our common future. This can be shown in terms of interaction with the social, environment, and economic. Interaction of social environmental factors. The report of the United Nations Commission on the Environment and Development in 1987, also known as the Brundtland Report, is the first of its kind that drew attention from one Earth to one world. My research contributions. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir. Application of analytical techniques to the analysis of environmental samples. 1, the danger posed by pesticides. 2, method development for improving known method of analysis. 3, application of atomic absorption spectrophotometry in the analysis of metals in various biota of soil, blood, saliva, etc. And 4, disposition of metals in soil samples. 5, interaction of humans with the environment using samples such as teeth, breast milk, urine, and blood for metal analysis. 5, the dynamics of food processing and preservation. And 7, land remediation. Finally, research into parameters that will make the environment sustainable remain my area of focus and motivation, which I hope in the next few years to come, until I'm retired but not tired, will form a major platform of my continued contribution to knowledge. My research contribution can be seen with respect to the four footprints on the environment and in relation to forensic science. These contacts leave a trace of various pollution on Mother Earth, our world, leading to various pollution in soil, water, air, energy, and heat. In this vein, I stand before you as a detective grade 1 in the likes of Sherlock Holmes, probing and searching for man's footprints on the environment. My research contributions. Just as I stated that we have 4 spheres of man's footprints, I start with the atmosphere. Air, assessment of vehicular pollution on occupationally exposed people in Lagos metropolis, Nigeria. Urban pollutants consist of carbon monoxide, particulate matter, oxides of nitrogen, ozone, lead, and hydrocarbons, leading to impairment of visual perception, work capacity, manual dexterity, learning ability, and death. Lagos metropolis was the center of a study to assess the health impacts of vehicular pollution on occupationally exposed people, in particular traffic control officers. Adeleke et al., 2011. First, a comparison of biosocial characteristics and pollution exposure of traffic officers and control is presented in the table shown above. You can see that from the hours 1 to 5, we have about 2%, 6 to 10, we have 74%, and above 10 hours, we have 24%. This table shows the statistical documentation of the various diseases related to air pollution over a period of 5 years. And from here, we can see that the highest diseases recorded were upper respiratory tract infection, asthma, bronchopneumonia, and pneumonia. We then look at the purity of the air in Ikeja, CMS, Maryland, Mazamaza, Oshodi, Imota, Ikotun, and Unilag. You can see the values for Mazamaza is in red, showing that for all the parameters monitored, Mazamaza had the highest concentration of each of the parameters with the exception of NO2 at CMS. The summary of the findings show that University of Lagos had the lowest level of each of these pollutants, with the exposure of the general Lagos resident to a high concentration of these gaseous pollutants. It is not far-fetched for a high occurrence of respiratory diseases alluded to by Shoha et al., 1999, and Casiola et al., 2002. A higher concentration of carbon monoxide in blood of the occupationally exposed people and the prevalence of respiratory ailments among the general populace show the negative impact of air pollution on Lagos residents. Just like Archimedes, who shouted Eruka. I want to shout Eruka now because Lagos State leads in terms of information on its air quality. I implore the audience, take your phone, go to the Play Store to download the app AIRQO. Follow the stepwise instruction, and anywhere in Lagos, you'll be able to monitor the air quality. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the second research contribution is also in the atmosphere, and this has to do with influence of environmental degradation on the concentration of copper, lead, and zinc in tissues of grass cutter. Wildlife is a valuable source of protein, particularly for rural community. However, a large percentage of bushmeat from rural area is today being sold to urban consumers at prices considered exorbitant. This study shows the exposure of heavy metal contamination in the Kila area of Odeda local government, Ogun State, Nigeria, using grass cutter as a case study. BAMGBOSE et al., 1996. First, we look at the concentration of copper, lead, and zinc in the muscle tissue of replicate analysis. From the replicate analysis, these are within acceptable norms. Those are the values in red. For copper, 13.28 plus or minus 0.15. For zinc, 28.91 plus or minus 0.16. We then looked at the concentration of these metals in the heart of the grass cutter, in the kidney, in the liver, and in the muzzle. We found out that more often than not, the red values show the high values for the adults. The adults had higher values, while the sub-adults had lower values, which are the values in blue. This observation agrees with the reports of Johnson and Roberts, 1978, on metal concentration in tissues of small mammals from polluted environments, and the report of Anderson and Barrett, 1982. A consistent trend of metal elevation was found within the various organs, leading to a summary of our finding that the muscle tissue was the least contaminated of the various organs analyzed. There was increase in metal concentration from juvenile / sub-adult grass cutter to the adult grass cutter. And in the trend, kidney greater than liver, liver greater than heart, and heart greater than muzzle. Heavy metals in tissue had higher concentration in animals that were captured from the natural range than from the domesticated grass cutter under laboratory conditions, showing that dietary sources are responsible for tissue heavy metal concentration. We now move from the atmosphere to the hydrosphere. In the hydrosphere, we look at Galeote decadactylus, a bioindicator for the Nigerian marine environment. The English name for the fish is threadfin fish. As at the time of this study, no fish species had been proposed as a bioindicator for the Nigerian marine environment with regards to monitoring of chlorinated hydrocarbons. This study was based on an earlier report by Oshibanjo and BAMGBOSE, 1990. If you look at that table, those values in red show for Galeote decadactylus having a very high correlation coefficient for fish length, fish fat, fish length, and the pesticide concentrated. There is now a considerable body of evidence to suggest that some form of equilibrium exists between the levels of chlorinated hydrocarbons in marine water and that in marine fish. We then look at the range of this pesticide concentration between 1983 to 1985. And following that, we looked at the fish species that had the highest concentration of the residue. Look at the values in red. For HCB, we had Galeote decadactylus. For heptachlor, we had Galeote decadactylus. For PCB, we have Galeote decadactylus. We now summarize as follows. The fish weight and fish length, the fish weight and fish fat, fish length and fish fat all gave positive correlation coefficients. Similarly, these parameters, fish length, fish weight, and fish fat, also gave positive correlation with the concentration of the chlorinated hydrocarbons. As a result of these relationships, the fish species Galeote decadactylus was presented to serve as a bioindicator for monitoring chlorinated hydrocarbons in the Nigerian marine environment. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me to take you to GBEKELOLUWA coastal communities where they lack potable water. In that picture, you can see that young boy drinking the dirty water directly from the stream. The study area comprised mainly selected communities in Ilaje and Eseodo local government area of Ondo State, comprising of 30 towns, which were divided into 4 districts as shown in the table above by Terebo et al. 2019. Also arising from this work, published, we also had Terebo 2020, Terebo 2021. The table 1 shows the waterworks, Lagbaka, Akure, Owena, Undo Waterwork, and Owena, Ilesha Waterworks. Whereas District 2, District 3, and District 4 shows the various towns, but they were grouped based on nearness to each other. We looked at the PAH in the waterworks and also in those districts 2, 3, and 4. What we found out was that even at the waterworks, it also contained the 16 priority target usurper compounds. We had a total of 16 congeners, and this analysis was carried out both for the dry season and the rainy season. And it shows that the levels were higher in the dry season. And the reason for this is clear: there will be dilution in the rainy season. We then concluded that similar trend of pH distribution in bore water was observed in both seasons, with few exceptions in District 4 for anthracene, benzo-B-furan, benzo-A-pyrene, and dibenzo-AH anthracene for wet and dry seasons, respectively. The results of pH congeners of the bore water sample were within the WHO permissible level, with the exception of anthracene, cysene, benzofuran, dibenzoate anthracene, all found in District 1 in both seasons. Still working within the hydrosphere, we looked at heavy metal remediation from wastewater using agricultural waste biomass. We found out that DOES, which costs about 17,600 as of the time of that research, did not perform well as using yam peel, cassava peel, maize cob, or cowpea ox for the removal of these heavy metals. On completion of the study, the International Foundation for Science, IFS, Sweden, provided a grant of about $10,500 for my students to continue, the study with 4 other heavy metals. The results were similar to those obtained for lead remediation. Over 90% of cadmium, chromium, copper, lead, and zinc were removed from paint and textile effluent using sugarcane biomass. Arising from this study, the following publications: Okpaolu et al. 2008, Okpaolu et al. 2009, Okpaolu et al. 2010, Okpaolu et al. 2011 were published. Now we are back at the lithosphere. Phytoremediation of lead contaminated soil using Amaranthus cruentus. Amaranthus cruentus is Ephotete. In the phytoremediation process, several sequential crops of selected plant species can be cultivated to reduce the concentration of heavy metals in contaminated soil to environmentally acceptable levels. Zane et al., 2002. Now, we looked at the dry matter of Amaranthus cruentus in lead polluted soil, and we can see that the control had higher values. The dry yield levels of leaves, stem, and roots was highest for control and lowest in the treated plants. Whereas for the leaves and stems, the lowest treatment was with the 1,800 ppm lead and EDTA. That's why the value is in blue. We also found that lead levels in leaves and stems increased as the level of lead in the roots reduced correspondingly, yet appreciable amounts of lead was still detected in the plant roots with respect to soluble lead in the soil. This is in agreement with the work of Jout et al. 2002, who reported levels of cadmium in roots of strawberry. Lead concentration in soil significantly increased Looking at that table, you can see that the color looks as if it's faint and gradually increasing downwards. It's just to show the trend of the increase. As the color becomes deeper, it shows the increase. Similarly, for the lead absorbed by chute level, there is also an increasing color gradient showing for 81.6, the highest value for the 1,800 ppm and EDTA. We then concluded that Amaranthus curentis has the potential to translocate above average of lead from contaminated soil to chute, since the transfer factor is greater than 1. To know that phytoremediation species should be able to transport most of the contaminants to the chutes, which facilitate sequestering of pollutants, 2 et al., 2002. Hence, Amaranthus curentis qualified as a hyperaccumulator and a promising plant for phytoremediation. This may, however, pose a health risk to the human consumer, since levels were highest in the leaves. This implies that the plants meant for human consumption must not be planted on lead-contaminated soil. Mr. Vice Chancellor, we are still in the lithosphere. We looked at the heavy metal contents in playground topsoil of some public primary schools. And you can see the children playing on the playground. This study was carried out by Pokwola et al., 2012, determining the levels of heavy metals in 40 topsoil samples obtained from playgrounds of some public primary schools in Lagos State. Not only are children more susceptible to the negative effects of soil contaminants because of physiological factor, but they are also closer to the ground when playing and may thereby ingest soil through mouthing dirty hands and objects, eating drop food, and even consuming soil directly. We looked at the 20 local governments, schools in the 20 local governments. We picked 2 schools each in each of the local governments. We found out that in general, the mainland had higher values for lead, higher values for chromium, whereas Lagos Island had higher values for cadmium and higher values for manganese. To provide a healthy city environment and protect young lives from heavy metal contaminants, it is important to have a thorough understanding of the nature and extent of heavy metal pollution in playground. If you look at the value for Epe there, 40.00 plus or minus 0.46 nanogram per gram, whereas we note that Epe is not really in the likes of an high density pollution area. However, we could explain this, that despite being a rural area, like Agege, Ajeromi, Felodun, Ibejuleki, that also had high lead, this can be partially due to sources from influx of imported power generating sets that have flooded our country in recent times due to poor existence of power generation. In conclusion, the metal concentration in the playground soils studied the characteristic of unpolluted soils, except for some areas with levels above those considered as acceptable limits for recreational and institutional environments such as Lagos Island and mainland local government areas. Therefore, maintaining ground cover will, however, provide a margin of safety from exposure to heavy metals in playground soil. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, here we are in the biosphere. You can see various forms of e-pipe, e-cigarettes. We are looking at levels of cadmium, lead, and zinc in urine of randomly selected smokers and non-smokers residents of Abeokuta City. Urine samples of 200 male volunteers, comprising 100 smokers and non-smokers, were analyzed for levels of heavy metals such as cadmium, lead, and zinc. BAMGBOSE et al., 2007. Do not ask me why we excluded women from this research. The occupational status of the respondents sampled varied widely. We had carpenter, driver, clerk, and interestingly, we also have some of our students who are also smokers, thus indicating that a smaller proportion of the students of this our great university, the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, are also involved in smoking. The types of cigarettes smoked include Rothmans, Benson and Hedges, St. Maurice, Target, Gold Leaf, with a smoking rate of 2 to 4 sticks of cigarettes as minimum and 8 to 10 at the upper level. Students showed up as non-smokers in the age range 10 to 19, 60%, and 30 to 39, 33.3%. Also to note that the largest percentage of student smokers are in the age range of 20 to 29. Looking at the levels generally concentrated, we found that in all cases, the levels of the metals in cadmium, in lead, in zinc were higher for smokers than that for non-smokers. In Lagos, in Ibadan, and Abeokuta, we found out that ages 14 to 20, 41 to 50, 51 to 60, 61 to 70, Lagos had the highest levels, whereas Ibadan only had a higher level at the age of 31 to 40. A total of 306 samples of teeth were extracted from men and women living in Lagos between the ages of 14 to 70. All these samples were collected from dental centers in these cities. Arowolu and BAMGBOSE, 2004. In this issue, we did not separate we didn't separate gender. We took for both male and female. We now found that there is no significant difference between the levels concentrated between a decayed female teeth and that of a male. And to note that in each case, the amount of lead increased as the ages of the respondents increased. We then compared our results to that of other countries like Northern Ireland, England, France, Finland, Mexico City, South Africa. We now discover that the results obtained in the study for Arowolu and BAMGBOSE were low in most cases when compared to the levels reported in literature by several workers as compared in those tables. We then concluded analysis of teeth has now become common in prospective and retrospective studies of lead exposure and also in relating exposure to human health. The lead levels in the teeth have the advantage of reflecting the cumulative lead burden over a given period. No significant difference exists between the lead levels in the teeth of residents of the three cities, Lagos, Ibadan, and Abeokuta. The regression coefficients obtained readily confirm that the lead levels are age-dependent and a direct evidence of the accumulation of lead in teeth. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, at times you have man's footprints is difficult to place, whether in an environment, in a particular sphere, whether it's a lithosphere or biosphere. Therefore, I took an example where we look at a biosphere and lithosphere interaction, looking at effective management of fecal sludge through co-digestion of biogas generation. We all know that fossil fuels are primary energy sources, and these fossil fuels have led to global climate change. Going along with it, environmental degradation, and then human health problems. Adeniran et al., 2014. We now know that we can obtain, by the anaerobic digestion of plant-based organic waste, to produce a mixture of colorless, flameless gas, referred to as biogas. Because we know a lot of feedstock waste is generated from agriculture, and as such, this waste can be properly managed by conversion into useful and more environment-friendly forms called biogas. A pilot study for the biogas production was carried out by one of my PhD students, now Dr. Shoyingbe. Resulting from his work, we have Shoyingbe et al. 2019, Shoyingbe et al. 2020, Shoyingbe et al. 2021. The diagram above shows how the construction took place. The digester was constructed in accordance with designed layout. A water-resistant iron fabricated stirrer was fixed into the digester before the dome was cast for effective mixing of the substrate. Pipeline connection to convey methane to the kitchen for utilization was carried out. Both inlet and outlet tanks were covered with metal plates to reduce odor nuisance and breeding of mosquitoes. To note that this work was carried out in 2019, and 4 years after, when we visited, they were still using the biogas to cook. We made a calculation of the materials that was used. It came to a total of 274,275 naira. However, this was at an exchange rate of 420 naira to the dollar. We compared the stove value of the biogas compared with other energy sources. We found out that the biogas gave a less cooking time in that case. What we actually did was we cooked 2 cups of rice 3 times, and we timed it, and we saw that the biogas did better than LPG and kerosene. The summary of finding that economic realities may make this fecal sludge conversion to biogas difficult to achieve now that $1 is about 1,000 naira. The biogas generated was scientifically richer in methane and more efficient than liquid petroleum gas and kerosene in terms of cooking time and eating capacity. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, in our department, we often take our students on field trip. The picture above shows Dr. Olijimi and myself when we took the 300 level students, who are now going to 400 now, to Shadia Dome site. Conclusions. The exponential growth in population leading to a higher consumption of energy, food and materials opens up an astronomical increase in human prints on the environment. It is of utmost importance that we do everything possible to ensure the preservation of a healthy environment, not only in our own interest, but also in the interest of generations that will come after us, and to whom ideally we should bequeath a legacy of clean, habitable, and safe environment, as we are all stakeholders in the global village. The time is now for all of us to join the struggle for a healthy environment in order to reduce considerably the footprints of man on the environment. Recommendations. Government must be alive to its responsibilities of funding universities so that there could be sustained research in the identification of man's footprints on the environment. The political terrain has created 6 geopolitical zones, and as such, I wish to implore government to put in place standard laboratory complexes with state-of-the-art equipment that universities can draw on with the aim of achieving its mandate of tracking man's footprints on the environment. Number 3, it is also of utmost importance that there must be increased public awareness in the light of a greater public education so that the populace can fully understand the need to halt indiscriminate, ugly, and unwarranted human footprints on the environment. Nothing beats ignorance like education. Government must also, as a necessity, find a way to improve the economy of the country with a resolve to pass down the positive dividend of democracy to its citizens. The high cost of fuel has had a spiral effect on cost of living that what can assist green environments is virtually disappearing in the likes of using gas. Even as at now, kerosene has become an antiquity and citizens are in the bush with a heightened rise of deforestation and increased and indelible footprints of man on the environment. Acknowledgements. The Lord Almighty, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord Almighty. Zechariah 4:6. I wish to acknowledge the current principal officers, the 2 DVCs, the acting registrar, acting bursar, and the university bursar. All former vice chancellors, particularly Professor Nimbe Adedipe, under whom I was employed, and I fondly want to acknowledge Professor O.A. Enikweme, who approved my sabbatical at a time that it was difficult for him to do so. Then my good friend, Professor Laya Balogun, who I often refer to as a car in the likes of Maurice Minor, small frame, but yet a big engine, in similarity to his brain. He exposed me internationally and indeed locally when I served as the pioneer director of the Center for Entrepreneurial Studies, which I nurtured and coined as SENSE. Thank you, Prof. Former Deputy Vice Chancellors, as listed, particularly Professor M. Dikpeolu and the husband, Brother Wale, Professor L.O. Sonny, my comrade in arms, my partner in crime, and a very good friend of mine. And my friend before, Professor Mrs. Bolanle Akredoluwale. I can see you where you are hiding. Then I'd like to acknowledge the immediate past DVC, Professor C.O.N. Ikeobi. All former principal officers, represented by T.M. Salisu, the librarian, Omoba B.C. Shobejo, the registrar, and Mr. M.O. Ilesomi Bosa. I'd worked in 4 places: UI, LASU, OU, and FUNAP. I'd like to acknowledge all my teachers in UI, and particularly my supervisor for my master's degree and PhD, Professor Oladile Oshibanjo, who taught me how to be a workaholic, and that purposeful research work calls for self-discipline, hard work, patience, and humility as shown by him, and that jack of all trades, indeed a master of all. In LASU, my colleagues as listed, all you, I'd like to acknowledge the latest professor, Professor Femi Adeyemi, other people as listed, and in FUNAB, I acknowledge all the academic staff in all the various colleges. My college, my dean, Professor Moni, in fact, all the time he kept asking me, how far with this write-up? And I told him not to worry. I acknowledge all the former deans and my colleagues and buddies in forestry and wildlife management, and also in AQFM. To mention a few of them, Shotuyo, Adetogun, Oluwalano, Jayola, in AQFM, Buki George, Agbebi, Adioshun, Alegbeleye, and Sheung Ojelade. My department, my HOD, Professor B.S. Bada, and all the professors, Adeofun, Gbadebo, Adedeji, Olayinka, Oguntoke, Ojekunle, and then all the doctors there, Olujimi, Taiwo, Oyebanji, and the rest. I owe my colleagues in EMT department a debt of gratitude for providing a good working environment and cordial relationship, and also for coming out in their numbers, financially, and attire-wise to support me today. I have worked with several non-academic staff, junior staff and senior staff. I acknowledge every one of them. I've been on sabbatical in 3 universities. ORU in 2003, then in 2010, Unilag. In 2017, I went to FUTA. I acknowledge the professors in Unilag, Professor Alo, Familoni, Olayinka, Okey, Ashekun, Adams, and Ogunlesi, and the current HOD of the department, Professor Olusegun Ayejuyo. Doctors Abayomi, Alani, Agumbiade, Izunobi, and the rest. In OOU, Professor Deji Agbola, the current VC, Dr. Tunde Odunlami, Benga Ogunbote, Professor Ogunyemi, Dr. Oshobamiro, and Dr. Ebikunle. At FUTA, I cannot but acknowledge the late Professor B.E. Gregory Daamola, who facilitated my sabbatical at FUTA. I acknowledge members of the department, Professor Adetuyi, Popola, Laide, Ajayi, Amao, Okoronko, and all the other doctors in the department. I am one of the lucky few to attend Government College Ibadan. Up school. During that time, we had teachers like J.B. Ojo, Oyetunji, Komolafe, Emodi, Oluwole, and I belong to the set, 74 sets, with our current class president, Segun Oguntoyinbo, Baron Fagbenro, the immediate past president, Segun Kehinde, our permanent secretary, and Dayo Adekola, my boy, and Bola Shokoya representing the pastors on that platform. I acknowledge all of you. I cannot but remember my late colleagues in the class, Wale Aboderi, Sule Oladimeji, and Papa Segun Ogunaike, and Oriola Fola. As of the time I finished my school cert, I had to go to the Polytechnic for basic studies. The interesting thing at this basic studies is that most of my colleagues there ended up being in the academics, like Professor Basman Olaiwola, Victor Olumekun, Kehinde Ayola, Kayode Adedire, Abiola Borishade, Francisca George, Jimmy Adeshino, and others who are not professors but reputable in their chosen profession, And I cannot forget Olusesan Ekishola. If you recall the tune of OGBC that time, Olusesan was also a classmate. My friends, at Ijebu-Ode, I had friends like Biodun Latif, Fatai Adetunji, Anthony Awonusi, Tayo Ambusola Ayogbeson, Kola Anfeyi Oguneye, Wale Oshilagun, Muiwa and Lara Onosanya, the crew at Ore-Ofe Hospital, and Dr. Atewalogun. I also had late friends, unfortunately, Doyin Bakare, Fola Oshokolu, and Leke Akipelu. My other friends, though not in Ijebu-Ode, include Sami Oyelade and the wife, who normally give me accommodation when I'm in Lagos. Dr. Showole, my doctor that treats me pro bono. Then Professor G.O. Olatunde, the immediate vice chancellor of OOU. In Abeokuta, I have various friends, particularly a bosom friend, though a senior colleague, but every time he calls me my Oga, Professor Toyin Arowolo, a friend over 40 years, along with the children. Femi Akinpelu and Bose Akinpelu, Wale Adeyemo and Mommy Shehu, along with Ade Baris and the children, Diola, Lola, and Fumbi. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Funsho Ogun and the wife, Arin. I have quite a number of friends and relations in the diaspora that it may take me, if I want to list everybody, I may not finish here today. They include Mr. and Mrs. Kola Oguneye, Dr. and Mrs. Fola Akapo, Omo Okeile, Tokunbo Adejumo, Toyin Idayo, Jimi Kunle Joke Owotomo, Shola Adams, Tunde Shonaike, Yetunde Awodeko, and my friend Jide Ijadari. I cannot but acknowledge the ASU UNAB chairpersons. These are people that keeps the vice chancellor on their toe. And I don't know whether Dr. Adeleye has been doing that to the current vice chancellor. But ASU executive, at the zonal level, Dr. Nasil, Professor Nilude, Dr. Salami, Gbenga Gumbote, Joe Olagunju, Femi Adeyemi, Professor Odukoya, Professor Ngozi Ilo, Professor Agbola, and members of the Lagos zone. Particularly, I want to acknowledge all the various people who came here from UNIBEN today, UI, to come and honor me here. I'm very grateful. At the national level, all the past presidents, Asisi Asobie, Dipo Fashino, Fage, Sule Kanu, Biodun Oguyemi, and Emmanuel Osadeke, the current president. We have no other union but ASU that are so ardently given to the universities all the groundbreaking improvements vis-a-vis salaries and emoluments like EAA, excess workload, and other allowances, and the ability to stand up to dictatorial vice chancellors and authoritarian governments. We must all rise up in support of our union, as no other union can take us to the promised land. My students, I cannot but acknowledge this set of students. They are the 2022-2023 graduating 500 level EMT toxicology students. This is a set of a wonderful class of brilliant students. Mayowa, Zenab, Temitope, Omolola, Abayomi, Anat, Esther, Titilope, Olumide, Blessing, and Olusegun. I would also like to acknowledge the efforts of my PhD students and a few master students who came together to form the G15 in group of my inaugural. To show that the jotters I'm going to distribute to some people here was solely financed by them. And they made personal financial commitment to this inaugural so that whatever I will have spent for this inaugural is so little with the amount they contributed to the inaugural. In this vein, I would like to acknowledge them as shown in the picture: Professor Toyin Okpeolu, Dr. Tayo Sindiku, Dr. Seun Popola, Dr. Gbadesere Akintunde, Dr. Wole Terebo, Dr. Aziz Shoyingbe, Dr. Abidin Alamu, Dr. Bosun Oladimeji, who is the youngest of them all, Mrs. Omotola Olumodeji, Mrs. Feyishayo Adenitire, Seun Akinlotan, Sunkanmi Osho, Lateef Abdulsalam, Wasiu Abajo, and Charles Emugba. My mothers, it is with honor and pride that I hereby acknowledge first my mothers, all of whom are now late. Mrs. Grace Owotomo, Mrs. Ayinke Oladuni, Mrs. Abosede Otegbeye, and Mrs. Adenike BAMGBOSE. I'm lucky indeed to have all these women who have doted on me. I think I'm one of the luckiest people to have 4 mothers. My families, the Owotomos, late barrister Ayolu Owotomo and the children, Brother Moyo, Bokun, Toyin, Ronke, Ebun, Arin, Joke, Dayo, Folajimi, Tele, and Kunle, the Olubajos, Dupe Adeogu and the Toyobos, Senior Apostle Nathan BAMGBOSE and his children, Remi, Shegun, Sunday, and Olaoluwa. Late Mrs. Abosede Otegbeye's children, Sunday, B.E. and Yemisi, Professor Remi Ogunfoko and Professor Ye Kunle, and the Department of Chemistry, OAU. Emeritus Professor Kola Adeyoju and the wife, Dr. Adeola Adeyoju, Mrs. Ijadare and her son Kunle and Jumoke, the Dosumus, Mr. Ogundipe, retired Captain Jide Ijadare. My siblings. To my immediate siblings, Iyabo, Femi, Funlayo, Debola, words cannot describe your support and the congenial atmosphere for a beautiful family coexistence that you have provided. My grandnephews and nieces, thank you. This is Grandpa too, saying hello. My children, Bukola, Bolaon, Taye, and Kehinde, you all are the type of children that any parent will always be proud of. I'm indeed proud of you all, as I eagerly await to become a grandfather soon. My immediate families, Adebimpe Oluwatoyin, Mrs. Adeola Olaloko, the Bantefas, Rosemary Oladosu Ajayi, Fishayo Oladunu, Tunde Ogungbade, Akim Bangbade, Taiwo Oladele, and Kehinde Oladiran. My friends, you will all recollect that there was an 8-month ASU strike, and there are major benefits, and these pictures represent my major benefactors who did not allow me to break the strike. And because of them, I can proudly say that I won't grieve for anybody. And then, I cannot but thank my wife, Professor Titilayo BAMGBOSE. Please, can you stand up? You have undertaken this rough journey of life through thick and thin with me in the last 30 years. Plus, you have been a great support to the proper training of our children to make them attain enviable status in life. Most important of all, you have survived turbulent times that ordinarily would have taken the lives of mere women and indeed academics. You stood tall You stood tall, head unbowed, though bloodied, yet here you are. Despite all these obstacles, you are now at the peak of your profession. I sincerely appreciate you. My father, my teacher, friend, and father. Professor, Emeritus Professor BAMGBOSE, acknowledged all over the world as the doyen of African linguistics. Earnest, eminent, epitome of virtue, and exceptional is my father. Ọmọ BAMGBOSE ọ̀rọ̀ bìtìkó, àwọn olùmọ̀lẹ̀ bí ẹ̀bìtì, ó forí onígbèsè, yé ìmọ̀ kítíkítí, ọmọ káríkárà, kára ká má san, ọmọ kára, ọmọ àtàmátàwìn, ara má san, ọmọ àfàìlówó nílé pẹ̀lórì, ọmọ àfàìládìyẹ, palágò, kóróǹdékè mọ́. My father, I can never thank you enough. The Vice Chancellor. I thank the President Vice Chancellor. Professor Olushola Babatunde Kehinde, who approved the presentation of this inaugural lecture. Sir, I have 3 requests, all of them starting with a P. The first one is a plead. I'm pleading that the chicken feed that is given to inaugural lecturers be updated to camel feed or horse feed. 2, sir, the publication committee ought not to be a pro bono job, because up till yesterday, the chairman of publication was still running after me, and this is a lifetime job for these people. I'll be happy if the job is no longer pro bono. And finally, the last P, a prayer that may your footprints on this university environment leave a positive trace for all to see. The publication's appreciation, the publication and ceremonial communities that made this day to be, the audience and all guests from outside the university, I deeply appreciate you all and wish you journey masses to your various destinations. Mr. Vice Chancellor, Principal Officers of the University, Deans of Colleges, guests, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest of the greatest, Unabai. I thank you all for your patience and attention. I would like to end this lecture with the Solidarity Chorus. Please sing along with me. Solidarity forever. So the union makes us strong. Thank you very much. I hope I use one. Exactly.
Please, let's have our seats. Let's have our seats. Let's have our seats. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you'll agree with me that it has been an interesting time listening to the inaugural lecturer, the 84th inaugural lecture of our university. And on behalf of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, I present this award of honor to Professor KAYODE GBEKELOLUWA BAMGBOSE as the 81st inaugural lecturer of the university. Dated this day, Wednesday, 17th January 2024. Congratulations, sir. Well, we also have this. KAYODE Adebayo, Chairman, ASU Unilag. You are welcome. Professor Ayola Akinwole, Chairman, ASU University of Ibadan. Professor Muyosore Ajao, immediate past ASU Unilorin, Chairman and Dean, Basic Medical Sciences Faculty of KWASU, Kwara State University, Malete. Thanks for coming all the way from there. And of course, not forgetting Dr. Delia Shiru, immediate past Chairman, ASU Unilag. You are welcome. Professor Elijah Oyeyemi, Dean, Faculty of Science, Unilag. You are welcome, Prof. Dr. Lucky Aimeye Kagbon, Treasurer, ASU Uniben. You are welcome. Mr. and Mrs. Olumuyiwa Onosonya, the inaugural lecturer's friend, we welcome you. Professor Shegun Adejuyo, HOD Chemistry Unilag. Thanks for coming. And of course, someone who is also my own special friend, Professor Joseph Olagunju, the former Dean, Postgraduate School, Lagos State University. You are welcome, sir. Professor Abiodun Nilude is here, of the University of Ibadan. Professor Abiodun Nilude, you are welcome. Thank you so much. And of course, Professor Olufemi Adeyemi, Olabisi Onabanjo, University of Agowoye. Mr. Olugbenga Ogunbote, also of Olabisi Onabanjo, University of Agowoye, welcome you. Mr. Femi and Mrs. Funke BAMGBOSE, siblings to the inaugural lecturer, Chief Funsho Ogun is a cousin to the inaugural lecturer. And of course, Professor E.A. Ayelari.
The university will be honoring two awardees. The former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Atahiru Jega, will be honored in this university. Also, to be honored is the co-founder of the Guarantee Trust Bank, Mr. Fola Adeola. Thank you very much. Students should remain in the gallery, while other guests should remain in the hall. It is when the procession files out that we can take the exit. Thank you very much. Right now, we are going to be having the anthems. May you all rise, please, for the anthems. FUNAB anthem first, followed by the national anthem, national prayer. Thank you. FUNAB anthem, please.
For the mountains far and near.
second stanza of the national anthem, please. Thank you very much. Please, let's remain standing until the procession files out through the central hall. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. We have come to the end of the 84th inaugural lecture of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. The lecture was delivered by no other person than Professor KAYODE, GBEKELOLUWA, BAMGBOSE. And the title of the lecture was "In the Footprints of the Environment, Every Contact Leaves a Trace on Our Common Future." Thank you very much, dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen.